first of all, let me thank you on behalf of the community for always being by us, standing by us, and raising your voice in defense of Armenia and Armenians. And you know our question today, our concerns today. You have been following Armenia, the developments. What is your take of the situation?
Well, look, I really feel strongly that what's happened in the last week or so indicates that democracy is very much alive in Armenia. I've always felt that Armenia, was more democratic, more market-oriented than the majority of the former Soviet republics. And certainly this is an indication of that to me. The fact that the prime minister was willing to step down because of the demands of the protesters. I mean, that wouldn't have happened in Russia or Belarus or a lot of the other former Soviet republics. And so I think that, at some level, we have to sort of praise it because it does indicate that, that there's a viable democracy in Armenia. And I think the same is true for the market economy, has made great strides. So that's sort of my simple answer, but I'm sure you're going to ask other things.
You're so experienced, you know what I mean. But basically, did you expect the so-called Velvet Revolution to go this far, this fast?
No, I did not. I frankly did not believe that the change in the Constitution that vested more power in the prime minister and less in the president was necessarily something that, I actually thought it was a good thing at some level. I didn't see it as something that was just an effort, a power grab the way some have. I think that right now the most important thing is that, that the country stand together and move forward together, and that in the United States, we take the approach that this is what happens when you have a viable democracy and when the leadership is understanding of that.
Hi, Congressman. This is Vartan Satrian. How are you? And thank you so much for showing up for the genocide commemoration. Thank you so much. Quick question, if that's okay. Has the State Department come out with an official statement on this matter?
I don't know. I haven't seen anything from the State Department. I know that there's concern about, the Russian influence or, to what extent, Russia is involved. And, one of the things that I've said is that, Russia is always going to be involved in Armenia. I mean, look, let's face it, the Russian army is essentially protecting Armenia, and there are Russian bases in Armenia. I think it's been pointed out by the media that, the developments in Yerevan should not be perceived from that perspective. Armenia is always going to have to, sort of be in between Russia and the United States and the West. I mean, I think that, when we had that agreement signed with the European last November, I guess it was, that was a strong indication how, Armenia wants to move to the West and Armenia wants to be democratic and market-oriented, but at the same time, they have to be concerned about Russia because Russia, plays a role in protecting Armenia militarily. I mean, the West is certainly not going to do it. I mean, I'd be naive if I thought so. So I know that the State Department is looking at it from that perspective, certainly.
Congressman Pallone, how explosive could the whole region be if things go wrong? How much of a concern is that to you?
I don't see that as happening. I really don't. I mean, I think that I think the most important thing is if there's the election for the new. I mean, when the Parliament gets together and appoints, or however you want to describe a new prime minister, is that supposed to happen this week? Right? Is that
May 1st? May 1st.
Yeah. And so I think that hopefully when they do that, they pick somebody who is not just perceived as, a reflection of the prime minister who retired, and someone who can play a role in, addressing the protesters, but at the same time, be acceptable to the majority party, to the ruling party. and that's sort of what I'm hoping, that if that occurs, that we won't see any major disruption or violence, which I guess is what we're all afraid of. We don't want to see it. We don't want to see violence.
Congressman Pallone, one last question, and let me ask: can we fight corruption? Can we fight unemployment? Can we fight rigged elections by a velvet revolution?
Well, I think that that's what the revolution is about. But I think that what we'd like to see is a peaceful transformation. Look, I do believe that the concerns you have expressed, I think that we've made progress. I really do. I mean, I do think that the economy is growing and creating new jobs in the tech sector. When we were there when I was there last September with Armenian Caucus, my fellow Congress people in the Armenian Caucus,
yes,
and we met most of the time with our fellow parliamentarians because it was a parliamentary exchange. The MPs from Armenia were very excited about the new constitution. They thought that it was, moving in the right direction, that there were going to be changes made in the judiciary that were positive. And they were very positive about the economy in the sense that, they think that the high-tech sector and other sectors that are not so much, relying on the blockade. I mean, the blockade is always a problem in terms of creating jobs because, Armenia is isolated. And it doesn't have access to the sea. It doesn't have, so many goods can only go through Iran or they go by air, so there are limitations. But the high-tech sector is not in that area. I just thought that a lot of progress has been made in terms of education, healthcare, creating new jobs. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's certainly not. And certainly as long as, Turkey and Azerbaijan continue the blockade, it's going to be difficult because you only have access through Georgia and Iran. But I do think that I just think that this protest is a manifestation of the fact that we want change, but we want change in a peaceful way. And that's a positive thing, in my opinion, that can lead to more democracy and market reforms and less corruption. I'm not saying it has to, but I do think that it has that potential. And that's why I'm very positive about what's happened the last week, frankly.
Follow-up, Congressman Pallone, real quick. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. As far as the peaceful transformation of power, what are some ideas or specific thoughts that you have that could contribute to a peaceful transformation? We do not want any violence, and we agree with you that Armenia has grown.
I mean, the problem for me is that I don't want to, because I'm an outside observer and an American, I don't want to say, there should be a particular person made prime minister, or that whether there are going to be other changes to the Constitution. I think that my role and the role of Americans in general is to say, look, we see progress in Armenia, we see progress in democracy, we see what happened in the streets as an indication that that Armenia is progressing in these areas. But we are not going to dictate, what you do or suggest what you should do in terms of particular candidates or particular changes in the government structure, because I don't think that's my role.
Congressman Frank Pallone, is there anything in closing?
No, I just I think we should observe and be positive about Armenia's future and do whatever we can here in the United States to help, whether it's the diaspora donating money to the Armenia Fund or the other causes that improve education, healthcare infrastructure in Armenia. That's the type of thing that we can do, both from the government perspective and privately. So I'm positive. Thanks a lot.
Congressman, you've been a constant in the life of our community, our nation. We thank you, we pray for you, and wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
All right, you take care. Thanks.